My name is Gregory Fisher and I'll be doing my Jim Crowe project. Imagine if I was not allowed to sit in the front of the bus because I'm black. Imagine if I can't drink water unless the water fountain says colored because I'm black. Imagine if I couldn't go to the same schools as my friends because I'm black. If you lived in the Jim Crow law era, like my grandfather and grandma, they were alive in this era and they were going through those harsh laws. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment gave equal guard to black people. And the 15th Amendment gave the right to vote for black men. The Jim Crow laws were unconstitutional. Let me talk to you about some of the laws. If black people wanted to vote, they would have to count as many jelly beans are in a jar, but it's really not about smarts. It's about an educational guess, kind of. And if you wanted to vote, there was something called the grandfather law, and the grandfather would have to vote, or for you to be able to vote. If your grandfather didn't vote, you wouldn't be able to vote. The grandfather clause was unfair to black people because if your grandfather was enslaved, he couldn't vote anyways. So that's basically just a rule that's not gonna happen. Another Jim Crow law was the poll tax. So white people would put a type of tax money on the poll tax, and black people would have to pay it to be able to vote. But they had black people had jobs, but their jobs weren't high paying. They were very low paying jobs. So that means they didn't have enough money to buy the poll tax. And that means they can't vote. In the Jim Crow laws, there was segregation. And you may ask me, what is segregation? So I'll give you an example. So black people and white people had segregated schools. So basically segregation means separated. And they had different fountains, I already said different schools, but. So the schools were not equal. The white people's schools, they were very clean, shiny, bright. But black people's schools, they were not shiny. They were old, raggedy, made out of wood, and no detail. That's another example of why Jim Crow laws are not fair to black people. If a black person liked this white woman, and the white woman liked a black person, they could not get married because a black and white person could not get married in that time. It's considered illegal. Another Jim Crow law was illegal congregation, and my grandfather talked to me about this. So it's when you can't have 3 or more black people talking to each other. So if there are 2 black people talking about something cool and all that, and then this other black person tries to join them, they could not talk. One of them has to leave the group. Another Jim Crow law was I like my voice. So another Jim Crow law was buses. So just like Rosa Parks, I don't know if you read the book yet, but so black people were not allowed to sit in the front of the bus. If a white person wanted to sit down in their spot, they were forced to get in the back seat. But like Rosa Parks, she did otherwise, and she went to jail. Black people could sit in the front seat, but if a white person wanted to sit there, they would have to give up their seat and sit in the back of the bus. This is for some good information. So the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment were done after the Civil War, and Jim Crow laws were the laws that were unconstitutional. So the Jim Crow laws were schools, buses, marriage, illegal congregation, and schools. And it really doesn't make me feel happy about it, but you have to know your past to be able to go on and move on in the future. And this is my project, Jim Crow Law Project, by Gregory Fisher, aka me.